Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving deep into a figure who, well, he just looms so large, doesn't he? Anubis. We've got this really interesting set of materials here called Anubis: Guide, Authority, and Eternal Legacy. And our mission really is to get past that, that standard image of the jackal-headed god, maybe standing like the scales. We want to understand the real depth of his job, his duties, and why his authority is seen as, well, eternal.
Exactly. And that's the key thing we need to focus on for you, the listener. This isn't just about Anubis as a character. We're looking at how all his functions come together, how he's this central, indispensable force, right at the heart of the most critical moment in ancient Egyptian belief, that transformation into the afterlife. We're talking the full scope here, from like the physical body all the way to the divine backing that makes his word absolute. Why does it matter so much?
Yeah.
Because he's basically the mechanism making sure that whole journey for the soul actually works. Order, certainty, that's him.
Right, certainty. And to get a handle on that, we need to start with the place, the environment where all this happens. Our source material points right away to something it calls the Chamber of Transformation. And this isn't just some, waiting room. It's ground zero for this massive existential shift. If you picture those final moments, this is the sacred space where, well, earthly stuff gets left behind and the whole eternity thing kicks in.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? The authority seems tied to location, but it's completely embodied by him. Anubis is introduced straight up as a symbol of authority. He doesn't just manage the place. He presides over it. Think less courtroom, maybe more like a high-stakes lab where everything has to go perfectly. His jurisdiction, total, immediate. He's the gatekeeper, the one ensuring the process is formal, necessary, and follows the highest cosmic law. His presence is the authority.
Okay, so he embodies authority in this specific sacred space, which, thinking mythologically, could be the Hall of Two Truths, or maybe even where the body's prepared. How does that power actually translate into, the work, the nitty-gritty? We're moving from this idea of authority to the actual doing of it. The source calls it the embrace of duty.
Precisely, yeah. Authority without action is just, well, it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking countless souls over huge stretches of time. The Force really stresses that Anubis is committed to this embrace of duty. It says, quite simply, he performs his job.
Yeah.
And what is that job? It's kind of twofold, isn't it? It's looking after the physical body, the remains, and guiding the soul, the non-physical part. This isn't some passive title he just inherited. It demands this constant, tireless work to keep the whole transition orderly.
And this is where we get into the specifics, the physical side, which I think sometimes gets glossed over. We see him by the scales, yeah. But before that judgment, the source is clear. He's actively guiding the way. He leads the path. We're talking about that journey through the Duat, right? The Egyptian underworld, which sounds pretty hazardous. He's not just pointing the way. He's like the expert guide leading the newcomer through territory that's completely unknown, probably dangerous.
That role, the psychopomp, the guide of souls, that's absolutely crucial. It makes his duty paramount. I mean, guidance is pretty much the only protection you've got in what's described as a chaotic place. When a soul leaves the body, it's vulnerable, lost. Anubis gives that immediate direction, that clarity. His presence makes sure the soul actually gets where it needs to go, doesn't get lost before the big test.
And all that leadership, that guidance, it leads up to the sacred action. The sources remind us this is where the ceremonies take place. And when we say sacred action, we mean actual hands-on work, don't we? Mythologically, Anubis is the god of embalming. He's the one who oversaw Osiris's mummification, famously.
Yeah, bringing in that specific myth is so important here. The sacred action isn't just like filling out forms. It's the ritual preparation needed to make the physical body an eternal vessel. Mummification? It's the physical side of the spiritual journey. It's the ultimate preservation, and Anubis is the master of that process. By overseeing the embalming, he literally makes the physical shell ready for eternity. And there's more, like the opening of the mouth ceremony. That was his domain too, bringing the mummy's senses back online, letting the soul eat, speak, breathe again in the afterlife. His duty is literally the key that unlocks the future for the soul.
Wow, that's a huge responsibility. It really makes you shift focus, doesn't it? From just action to the power behind it, the consequences. If he's doing all this, coordinating the physical, the spiritual, where does the actual strength come from to enforce this cosmic law? Our material calls Anubis a source of might. He's generating power right there in that sacred context.
And we need to be clear about what this might is. It's not just, physical strength. It's the power of final say, of making sure the rituals are done exactly right. His might comes from the fact that he's the one watching the scales of Ma'at during the weighing of the heart. You often see him depicted actually adjusting the balance, making sure it's perfect. The power he has is the power of finality, that certainty that the law, Ma'at, the cosmic order, will be upheld no matter what the soul wants. He generates power because his role in judging is absolutely necessary.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because that power, it isn't just his own, it's sanctioned, right? The source connects his strength directly to the embrace of the gods. It calls it a sacred gift. This gives it the ultimate divine context. This isn't just some local underworld boss. It's a mandate from the top.
That divine sanction, yeah, it makes his authority completely solid, unimpeachable. The fact that the top gods, Ra, Osiris, gave this critical job to Anubis says everything about how trustworthy and neutral he was seen to be. And historically, remember, before Osiris really rose to prominence down there, Anubis was the main lord of the dead. Even after things shifted, his authority stayed absolute in those key areas, preparing the body, embalming and enforcing order, like guiding and watching the judgment. This sacred gift lets him operate without anyone questioning him, right up and down the divine chain of command. He's the necessary neutral party.
And all of this, the endless duty, the sacred action, the divine might, it all serves one single purpose for each soul, right? Securing the path to the afterlife. That's the guaranteed result, if everything's been done correctly.
The safety of that passage, yes, that's the guarantee. If Anubis has guided the soul properly through the duat, and if the heart checks out against the feather of Ma'at, a process he makes sure is done flawlessly, then the path is secure. His authority provides that protection, that structure. Without him making sure the rules are followed in that chamber of transformation, the soul could just be lost to chaos, like being swallowed by a mint. Anubis ensures order wins.
And that structure, that order, it leads to this idea of continuance, the eternal transition. The sources say the journey is set. It implies permanence. This isn't a job he does just once. It's this constant, unending flow. Life into death, death into whatever comes next.
Yes, exactly. The eternal transition really highlights that his role, his governance, is fundamentally tied to mortality itself. I mean, as long as there's life and death, his job is essential. He's the eternal administrator of that boundary line between the mortal world and the divine. Unlike some gods whose power might rise and fall with, say, political changes, Anubis's power is linked to a cosmic certainty. Every single being has to pass through his domain eventually.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together for you, the listener. Let's synthesize what we've unpacked.
Right. So Anubis's power, what the source calls a source of might, it really comes from his commitment to duty, the embrace of duty. Specifically, those ritual acts, guiding souls, embalming bodies, all happening in the chamber of transformation. This practical authority gets its ultimate backing from the embrace of the gods, that divine sanction. And the whole point of his operation is to secure the path to the afterlife, managing the constant flow of the eternal transition. The result, an endless legacy. Because his roles is just fundamentally necessary for cosmic order. His power can't die. It won't die.
So what does this all mean? We often think about authority in terms of like control or maybe conquest. But Anubis, he shows us a different model, doesn't he? His authority comes entirely from his service. His might is completely tied up with his obligation. It's a power that seems to exist only to make sure that essential journey is set correctly. It makes him less like a ruler and more like, I don't know, an eternal, indispensable public servant for the entire cosmos. So maybe reflect on that. A type of power defined not by what it takes, but by how perfectly it guarantees a fundamental process. That constant, tireless duty. That is his eternal might.